So welcome everybody. Some of you I think are pretty new and some of you have been with us a long time. Most of you know who I am, Lisa Herrick. I generally start these meetings off just with a welcome and something that might be interesting or inspiring. And today I'm going to use yesterday's Canvas as my inspiration. A whole pretty big group went out yesterday to canvas for Stacey Carroll. Stacey Carroll's going to be with us a little bit later. She's probably going to zoom in like from her car or something because she's super busy. And I have to say, you know, Mary was saying how many depressing things have happened this week. Yes. And really, Mary also always says that this group keeps her sane. And yesterday canvassing, I have to say, I just kept thinking, this is what's keeping me sane. What's keeping me sane is just seeing a group of people who drove an hour out to Stafford, Virginia to knock on doors, even though anybody who canvasses knows that about 15% of doors open, maybe 10% of doors open. So you have to be like pretty persistent and pretty upbeat to canvas regularly when you know that most people are not going to open their doors. But the people who do open their doors often have wonderful conversations with you. And I thought what I would do today is just read you a few anecdotes that canvassers sent to me, just to give you a flavor. And if you've never canvassed, it will give you a flavor of what it might be like when somebody opens their door and wants to talk to you. So I'm just going to read you a few. So Roberta said, I had one conversation with a 22-year-old from a Republican household who has never registered to vote and didn't plan to, but said his politics were progressive and maybe Democratic. He agreed to talk to me and asked a lot of really good questions. At the end of it, he said that I had explained the importance of voting and I was non-judgmental. So he was going to register to vote and vote early in person for all the Democrats on the ticket. And I used Jim Shelton's technique of saying, so it sounds like we have a deal, and we shook hands. That's from Roberta. From Martha Ellett about her husband, George Hastings. After canvassing my doors on the street, I located George in a voter's driveway discussing Stacey, Abigail Spanberger, the whole Dem ticket, and how to arrange for absentee ballots for the voter's daughter and son who were away at college, while eating one of the freshly cooked Nigerian donuts she was making in her garage. Canvassing can be delicious. That was Lucky George. And from Amy Kossoff, who was my partner canvassing. She made me laugh when she told me this story when we were finished canvassing, but I will read it to you. My last house was a couple who were strong Democrats and they had their mail-in ballots already. Patty Young, who's running for office, signed on the lawn. I was pretty pooped out at that point and anticipated a brief hello. So when the wife asked if she could tell me a story about Patty Young, I said, of course. I received a long education about drainage ditches in Stafford, sewage, and Patty Young trying so hard to fix the situation. I then tried to say goodbye, and she followed me down the steps and asked if she could tell me an Abigail Spanberger story. Sure, I said. Long story. Husband retired, couldn't get his Social Security benefits to come for months. Social Security told him there were 1 million people, literally 1 million, ahead of him. Wrote to Spanberger, and they started 5 days later. Wow, I said, taking a few steps back. She came with me, telling me about her 9 siblings, her husband's knee replacement, and her recent successful back surgery. I became concerned she was going to hop in the car with us. But she spends her day convincing neighbors to vote, so it was all worth it. So that was Amy's last door knock. And I'll just tell you a sort of funny story myself. So I showed up for the canvass with my little tiny white fluffy dog, Otis. And most people were like, oh, he's so cute. He's going to go canvassing with you. That's so great. But Jim Shelton looked at me and he looked at the dog and he said, really? He's going with you? Or something like that. And I said, yes, he is, Jim. And I think he'll be fine. But I was kind of nervous after that. So I took Otis. Lots of walking, and it was hot, lots of panting. I kept having to put him in Amy's car and leave the AC on, so it was a pain in the neck. He's never going to go canvassing again. But I was really worried about voters who had dogs because I didn't want them to think like, what a pain in the neck. This person's knocking on my door and making my dog go crazy. But there was one man in his garage, his open garage, working on something in his garage. And he had a dog who started going crazy when he saw Otis. And the man grabbed his leash and told him to sit down. And I thought, okay, he's going to be irked with me. And I said, I'm a volunteer for Stacey Carroll. I'm really sorry I have my dog. And he said, that's okay. I love dogs. And I said, so are you going to vote? And barking, barking, barking. My dog's tugging, his dog's tugging. He said, I already voted. And I said, really? So like, for Dems, he's like, up and down the ticket. I voted already. And I was like, thank you. And thank you for being a dog lover. And I'm going to tell Jim Shelton this story. So, yeah. All right. That's it for the inspiration. Today, we're going to have Jim, as usual, bring us up to date. And we're going to meet Stacey Carroll. And I just have to say one quick thing about Stacey Carroll, but you're going to see for yourself. She's like unbelievable. She's just an amazing human being. We have supported legislative candidates before who we have sort of said, this person's going to run for Congress, and then who knows? And that's the feeling I had about Stacey. She just was really an incredible human being, and her energy is spectacular. So I really have high hopes for her, and you will meet her and see her for yourself. Okay, Jim.
Great. Well, I'm really glad you had that experience. Worked out with the dog. I guess we could call it diversity. We have diversity when we're Democrats, right? All right. So I'm going to jump into my slides. I think pretty much everybody knows about how we go about doing all this. So that was very upbeat in a downbeat sort of week. But I want to say that politically, which is where I live, things are actually going great. They're going really well, which I'll get to. And that's partly related to all the rights infringement and so forth that we're seeing. So I'm showing our principles, which is almost a logo, but gonna highlight a couple of things. Playing to win and zigging when others are zagging. And specifically for the U.S. Senate, which, as you know, has been kind of a theme for us. And I think we can really continue to push that following those principles. So on the national scene, again, this is what I'm kind of driving at. His popularity continues to slide, especially among the key groups that we need to win. All these groups, and I'll show you the slide I've shown in the past, that's going to make a huge difference for us if it persists at all. And if anything, it's sort of continuing to increase. We have higher intensity. Democratic voters are more likely to vote. They're more enthusiastic about voting. He's actually weak. He's declining. And in my view, this is a lot of what Simon Rosenberg promotes. He's floundering around. He's trying to do things, one thing after another, just to kind of like keep going. And it's horrifying in some ways, but it's also not helping him politically, at least. And so that's showing up in special elections and in the thing that we're very concerned about for next year, the U.S. congressional preference, so-called generic ballot, as it's called. So for us, carpe diem, and the biggest priority is focusing on the Senate. So, but the question is how? How are we going to do that? Some of this I've laid out before. But getting back to the, this is this guy, Elliot Morris, who tracks a bunch of surveys, a bunch of polls over time. And there's a little blipping up and down, but this is not even the latest, I think the latest few days, but it continues to get bad for Trump. But here's something that's very interesting. This is a Washington Post poll, I think came out yesterday. And the first time that I can remember, Trump is actually underwater on crime. Now, think about that. I mean, that's sort of their biggest issue in a way. And the only thing I can think of is it has to do with the, boots on the ground in Washington, D.C. and so forth, that people don't like that. But it's just These things that he's doing and floundering are not helping him. Okay, but here's probably the most important data I want to show you. This again, also in the Washington Post poll. People preferring Democrats for Congress on a between 9 and 11% basis. Now, maybe that have to do with the way they phrased the question up here as a check on Trump, uh, which may provoke something in some people otherwise. But 9 to 11%, that's the biggest number that I can ever remember. That I think is a bigger number even than 1918. At least it rivals that number. So again, this is why I think that we can seize the day. So I've kind of laid this out before with a map, but I thought I'd just do it a different way this time. Um, I think it's worthwhile in this environment. We have to zig when other people are zagging and play to win by going after the US Senate. And of course, not the way that most people would want to go about doing that, which is donating to the marquee candidates, but other ways. So if you look at the top, we have 47 at the moment. We need 51 to get a majority. I think we have excellent prospects in North Carolina, and very good prospects in Maine, maybe good possibilities in Ohio and Texas, but very iffy also in both places, maybe a bit better in Ohio. But then we also have to defend all these other states, including, Georgia with Ossoff and so forth. So it's a reach, and so we're reaching. So how are we reaching? Well, we've presented this before. We think that Alaska, Iowa, and Nebraska are at the cutting edge for the U.S. Senate, and that's where we can make a difference if we're going to win. Now, mathematically, we don't have to, but it's just the most fruitious, if that's a word, place to work. And also that those same places have all these House races, governor races, legislature races, and so forth. And then the final thing is that in the longer term, and this is very profound, we have to expand competitive states because over time, demographically, population is increasing in currently red states, Texas, Florida, and so forth. And we have to try to make these states more competitive and bluer. So that's all part of the strategic approach to this. Now, probably pretty much everybody on this call knows that the way we like to do this is by promoting infrastructure. And so for those three states looking for opportunities, traditionally with the C3s and C4s, Democratic parties, and most important though actually is blue media, where for months I've been trying to find a good home for us, a good opportunity for us to have something very significant in blue media in those states. So just kind of back up a little bit, I think people know that the right-wing propaganda machine has been very, very strong. It's, in my view, the biggest reason why we lost in 2024. I actually think we're gaining a lot of ground. You might not be aware of that, but I think it's actually true. But the way that I think we can do it at the state level, and this does require, I think, focusing on state level blue media, social media kind of things, is through these folks called influencers or content creators that we talked about in other meetings. And we can talk some more about this in the Q&A if you would like to. And here we go, though. We have announcing a major impending opportunity. And it may fall through, but I feel that after months of working on this, that we do have a potential opportunity on the verge of agreement with a major innovative social media organization to do creator influencer work in Iowa. And the way this would work is it's an innovative way to sort of support these influencers at the sort of micro level. And it'll take a certain amount of money to fund it. But if it's working, we will build on it and we'll make it a lot bigger so that hopefully it'll have an impact and, can, hopefully have an impact on, how progressive the voter infrastructure is in Iowa. If we do this in the short term, the part, it's mostly going to be C3 funding, tax deductible. But there will be some C4 opportunity as well. So I'm really happy about, and I hope this comes to fruition. There's Iowa. Okay. So basically just stay tuned. We have not really asked you for money that much in a while. But just, hold on to your hat or hold on to your wallet, I guess, because if this comes along, especially over time, especially if it grows and grows to other states. But also we are, I had a talk today about maybe doing some support to Iowa State Democratic Party. So there will be other infrastructure opportunities that will be coming back to you potentially. All right, so shifting, but this is again part of that same wonderful story, set of stories from Lisa. This is actually about half of us because the rest of the people couldn't wait to get out to their doors. They were so enthusiastic. So here you see Stacey, and here you see Lisa with her lovely dog, Otis, so well behaved. You can see everyone likes Otis and diversity. You see, we have diversity. Okay. So anyway, that's just to kind of orient you to that. Now, hopefully, we're going to have Stacey has now joined us. Can somebody confirm whether she has or not?
Yes, she has.
Yes, she has.
I'm
So in
here.
that-
Yes.
okay, so just to say, I don't know what happened. I had another slide, but anyway, I'll turn it over to her, and she's going to introduce herself and tell her about herself and what great things she wants to do. Over to you, Stacey.
Good afternoon, 31st Street. If I told you I was sitting in my car because I just took a break from canvassing, would you believe me? And I say that because my weekly door knock goal is 250, and I am out this afternoon trying to get there without question. Listen, he showed the picture earlier of you guys coming out and doing great things for the campaign on yesterday. But let's be clear, you guys have been coming out every week, showing up, knocking on doors, and doing all the things. I can't expound and can't say enough how much that is so appreciated. And this environment, as was noted in the presentation earlier, disinformation is real, and being able to combat that with authentic conversations and facts are so, 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 so important here in this particular election. For those that have met me, hey, it's good to see you guys again. But those that have not, my name is Stacey Carroll. I am the House of Delegate candidate for the 64th district. I'll tell everybody I am not a politician, but I have been doing government. I've been doing government as an auditor on the federal level, auditing the federal government's financial statements, providing real recommendations on how to get rid of the waste. I have been doing government as a member of the National Guard. I retired December 28, 2025. I'm excited about that. And I've been doing government as a foster mom. When I'm talking on doors and doing various things, I remind people that my family is all about the work. We are out here. Quick story. Yesterday, I had 6 strong Republican doors that I went to yesterday. Trump flags, Trump paraphernalia, conservative signs on the bumper sticker, you name it. I knocked on that door. I had on this shirt. Of course, it was a contentious conversation, but the conversation went just a little bit like this. Why should I vote for you? Because I am here to do government, not into playing political games. Well, what's a political game? Pro-life. What's so political game about pro-life? Man, my family takes in foster children because we know that they need a safe place to stay. So when we talk about pro-life, we have to really mean it and put it into action. And I talked a little bit about me being a teen mom and various programs that helped me and my decision to keep my son, who is now a junior at Morehouse College, because of the support that the Democrat Party brings to the table. Out of all 6 of those doors, 4 of them, I had a handshake commitment to come out to the polls and vote for me. I say that because those authentic interactions are so important. Because for some weird reason, people seem to think that Democrats are crazy and we particularly want all of these weird things. But when we have a real conversation about the policies, we win the story 1,000% of the time. So just know that while you guys are out focusing on the get out to vote efforts, I am here on what's considered the persuasive universe, working on those that are considered to be the strong Republicans, reminding them that we are here to do government. And from a political perspective, whether or not you take away the R or the D, the Democrats have the real solutions on how to address the problems that are ahead of us. So if there is anything particularly that would be reminded that Stafford County is the battleground, just a little bit of statistics. In 2021, we went R plus 13. In 2024, we went R plus 2. Tim Kaine won in that very same election. So we know that there's crossover voters in room. We have a large propensity of federal workers and contractors, and we have a lot of veterans here in the district, twice the state average. So we know that as we're talking to voters, specifically veterans, about my opponent's position on cutting veterans benefits that veterans have rightfully earned, that resonates with people. When we talk about the state's position on being able to push back on some of the things, or the state's position from a federal level to support programs that are cut, that resonates, and that's not an R or a D. So as you come down, be reminded that your support is much needed, because we don't want to neglect those Democrat votes as well, whether that be leaning Democrat, strong Democrat. So you coming out, just reminding them that there is a candidate on the ballot, to be able to do so is so important, while I go into war country and remind people that, and I say people as in our Republican voters, that there is a new path forward to victory, and we need to get on this train so that we can fix the entire Commonwealth for everybody, because the path to victory is through Stafford County.
Great. Wow. Thank you so much, Stacey. That is a breath of fresh air and inspiration that I think we all could use. Stacey, I don't know if you have a minute or two to answer any questions that folks have. So we'll do that for a little bit. By the way, I'm Aaron Hamburger. I do membership here at 31st Street Swing Left, and I also do the curating of questions for these kinds of opportunities. So if folks have questions that they would like to pose to Stacey, I will take those. And then after we finish that, we're going to actually have an open mic session where people can just ask any questions that are on their minds. And Stacey, I want to ask you a question to get us going, which is, what is giving you the most hope for the future? It just seems like watching the news or reading the news is so depressing. What gives you the most hope about the way forward?
I would honestly say it would be the reminder of the power that we do have. Sometimes we pay attention to what's happening to where we, at the federal level, to where we lose sight of the power that we have on the state and local level. And I'm an auditor, so I try not to get involved in too many fairies and rainbows, but when I find myself distracted, I ground myself in fact. And in that fact, I was able to go remind myself of the power that we do have on the state and local legislator. And from that perspective is what prompted me to make sure that I was able to become a candidate for the House of Delegates, because we were, as a county, we were struggling with who was going to be the candidate. And after a while, I said, I'll do it, because this is crazy. We absolutely need to fight back. And that's why we have 100 candidates for the House of Delegates for the first time in common history, that we have 100 delegates running in all 100 districts across the Commonwealth.
That's great. And then one of our members has a question for you. What are the top issue priorities for your campaign?
So for me, it would be education. Education is under attack here. We have teachers that live in Stafford County that travel up to Northern Virginia for that higher salary. We need to ensure that we develop a program to where we can recruit and retain high quality teachers here in the district. So education without question from that perspective. And we also see the assault where they're trying to, what I consider to be, defund education and or reallocate those funds over to private and religious institutions. We have to ensure that we support the least of these, not just in talk or theory and sound bites, but in our application. So education without question is one of the key things that I care about. Secondly, would be the economy. We're not talking about nothing that people cannot afford to feed their families. 42% of all the children inside of our district qualify for free and reduced lunch. I know Stafford County looks great when it comes to statistics, when it comes to salaries and land plots of various things, but there is a particular generation or population or segment within inside the district that is left behind. And we have to ensure that we do that by ensuring that we support those particular programs that support that particular population, whether it be providing those broadband internet legislation, whether it be ensuring that we coordinate with our partners on the local level to make sure that we bring about general economic business here in Stafford County. Because as of right now, we are a bedrock community. We have to go up to Prince William County or Fredericksburg to make sure that we get a chance to have a good night or a good evening out. I call it a good night. I call it more or less like date night to hang out. But we need to be able to make sure that people that actually live here can actually enjoy specific life. And then without question, I am an advocate for veteran. As a veteran, I don't know what is going on, but I'll objectively say that we have served above the political noise from both sides because we served and took an oath to the Constitution of the United States, not one particular party or any particular thing. And over these last several years, we've seen various political parties or groups coming out against veterans on stances and attacking veteran benefits that veterans have rightfully earned through their service and calling into question whether or not that they should be receiving those benefits or not. To me, I'm not quite sure where or when the veterans community started, where it became acceptable to attack the veterans community, but we need to make sure that people that have served and have earned various benefits receive the necessary care and support that they need to, because they have been protecting and defending our nation.
Great. Wow. It's terrific. What would you say is at least one key difference between you and our opponent?
If I had to say one thing is I intend to serve. I am not in this because of any potential political gains or any profits in any way, shape, or form. And when a bill or something comes before me, I will do what is in the best interest of the people, not in it for what's in the best interest of me. And I would say that's one of the stark differences between me and my opponent. I know without question what it means to have a community help me stand up straight, specifically speaking, as we speak about the voting rights constitutional amendment that the Virginia House of Delegates will be taking up to be able to vote for that and push and advocate for voting rights to be restored for ex-felons. That I am a champion and proponent of that. My opponent is an ex-felon, had his voting rights restored through the current convoluted process and voted against the constitutional amendment. I have no understanding how we can walk through doors but shut those behind those so that other people can't come between them. But once elected, I will ensure that every opportunity to make sure that my fellow Virginians can stand up straight, I will do just that and support that via legislation.
Wonderful. Okay, we have one last question and then we will let you go. It's kind of a combination. Two people are sort of asking, what issues concern the Republicans you spoke with the most? How are we able to respond to those concerns and argue against the disinformation that is out there?
So one of the main concerns that I hear when I'm talking to Republican doors has a lot to do with the idea and or thought process that Democrats we have this extreme issue when it comes to abortion and pro-life and various things. And as I'm talking to them at the door, I talk to them very candidly. They'll say, where do you stand on the issue with pro-life? And I'll say, well, what part of the life are you speaking about? And I'll remind them that I'm a foster parent and my family has been taking in teenagers for years, and how I have a niece that was adopted out of the foster care system and my grandma took in foster children. So as a family act of service, we have been involved specifically regarding foster children. And I asked them to explain to me which area of life are they focused on, because it just seems as if when they talk about pro-life as as a movement that it comes off as the focus is only the baby, but not necessarily the children in foster care or even the young parents that have had children that maybe need assistance through whether it be WIC or childcare and or healthcare. And those authentic conversations kind of generally open up the conversation to be able to understand exactly what their focus is on pro-life. And then that's where I generally end the conversation more or less is it sounds more like pro-birth than it does like the life of the child. That's the concern. Would be one of the ways that as I talk to people at the doors, I try to kind of demystify this idea that Democrats just want to kill babies and we don't support babies and we don't believe in the life of the children. But I remind them that I serve as a foster parent. I was recognized as foster parent of the year. And as I look to my left and to my right, I ask them from a personal conviction question is how many children have you served from a different perspective? Like what are ways that you can get involved to more or less kind of combat the issue of specifically if you care about pro-life, then how are you working to move the needle to make sure that life is preserved? But I would say when I'm on the doors, that's one of the major questions I get is where do I stand on the pro-life issue? And I demystify a lot of that from their position of where Democrats feel because I remind them that I am a foster parent and we do all the things and take in all the children and ask them to then get busy in their own way, shape, or form to help combat or work towards their pro-life movement instead of it just being a talk from that perspective. But again, it comes off as a great conversation. They challenge me, I challenge them. And one of the young ladies I saw today walking around Publix, and she said, Stacey, I looked into foster care after our conversation 2 weeks ago. I was like, great, I'm excited about it. She was like, yeah, I felt convicted because we were thinking about taking in exchange students, but I remember what you said about foster children. So me and my husband are looking to that. And I was excited to hear that from a different perspective, irrespective of party affiliation, we were able to have authentic conversations and them not really think that Democrats desire to kill babies, but be reminded of who's actually doing some of the work in various areas on the ground.
That's great. And somebody in the chat said, I'm writing that one down for my next interaction with an anti-abortion voter. So that's a good thing to end on. Stacey, thank you again for joining us. Let's all give Stacey a huge hand.
Thank you, guys. Love you. I'm gonna
Love
get
you
back
too.
on these doors.
Thank
We
you.
will
Thank
be
you.
seeing you. We will be seeing you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that was terrific. So what we want to do right now on our program is to have some open mic time. So a lot of times we have presentations and guest speakers and all kinds of things where people are talking to you, but this is a chance for us to all to talk with each other and to hear everyone's voices. So if people have something that they want to ask about or they want to share about how things are going, what they're worried about, what they're excited about, you can leave a comment in the chat. You can ask a question directed at any of us on the leadership team. You can raise a virtual hand. As people may know by now, since we've been on Zoom for so long, if you go down to the bottom of your screen, there is a button that says react with a little heart above it. You press on that, and then it allows you to raise a virtual hand. So, okay, so Corey Amron has her hand up, so let's start with her. Corey.
Ooh, okay, thank you. Jim, I wanted to ask a question. I think maybe this is directed to you. Do you know of any planning or any programming or any groups that are working to fill in the vacuum that will be left when NPR stations in rural areas are given the axe by the Trump administration?
No.
Okay.
I mean, that's
I was
why
afraid
it
you were to say that.
behooves us to donate to NPR. Sorry, no, that's just, I don't, I'd be nice, but I don't, those are hard. It's hard to fill that. Maybe there's some social media kinds of things. I don't know.
Yeah, but that is one option right there, which is donating to NPR. I actually, I think it was my birthday a couple of months ago, and I just put on Facebook And I think that's one of the charities you can choose for like a birthday fundraiser. And I did a fundraiser for NPR, and I know someone who works at NPR who said, "Oh my gosh, this is so amazing that you're doing that." So anyway, just something for people to think about. Okay, question in the chat, and then after that, Virginia has her hand up. Question in the chat, Jim, which is the best bet for the United States Senate? Alaska, Iowa, or Nebraska?
So I guess that's from my friend Dave Sears. Dave, just so long as you don't donate to the to these people, not that they're bad people. It's so hard to say. I mean, Dre would say Nebraska with Osborne. That's he could be right. Um, in Alaska, if we get Mary Patella, then we have an excellent chance. In Iowa, there's like four really good candidates running against actually a fairly good Republican. Um, but I guess I would still probably say Nebraska, but maybe I'm just being optimistic about our efforts. I'm sorry, Iowa, sorry.
Iowa. Got it. Okay, Virginia, please ask your question.
Hi, I'm on, right? Yes, good. Jim knows this is coming. I just like his um, uh, mm, handicapping as of today about what's going on in the Virginia races all across the state, specifically the top three and the people we are supporting, that we've given money to before as 31st Street.
Right. So I think we're going to sweep the statewide races. I mean, the latest has Spanberger up by 12.
Wow.
I think the Hashmi was up by 8 or 9. I think even Jones, or maybe I have it backwards, 6 or 7. And I also think that the polling is not actually taking into consideration the intensity that I think we're feeling at the polls, at the canvassing. So I could be wrong. I tend to be a little optimistic, but just what I think. I think for the House of Delegates, I think we'll win at least 6 or 7, at least. And that'll, I mean, all of this will send a message.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's nice to have a majority of whatever 58 instead of 51 or 61 instead of 51. But the more, if it's a landslide wave, that'll make some of the Republicans sit up and take notice over.
Great. Thank you.
And Jim, while we have you, what is your feeling about New Jersey and Mikey Sherrill running there?
Well, I don't follow that as closely. Last poll, I saw her up by 8, which is not that long ago. So I think it's tougher there. But I think she'll win handily.
That's good. All right, some good news. See, come to 31st Street monthly meetings, get some good news. That's cheering. Okay, who else? More questions, thoughts?
So I was expecting somebody to ask about California redistricting. So I have a slide. Since we have a lull here, my sister Dorothy, of course, will be interested in this.
All right, so Jim, show your slide, and then Jeff and Mary have comments. Go ahead.
Let's see. Why is this not showing better? Can people even see this?
It's small.
All right, I'll make it bigger with it. So anyway, this is a poll from not that long ago. The biggest concern in a way is that there are good-hearted liberals like us that like fair maps and are not pragmatic enough to say, yes, we have to fight fire with fire. But according to this credible poll, it's 51-34 at the moment, which is really quite good. And there's a lot of money going into this on both sides. So there's no reason for us to weigh into it. So I'll stop sharing.
Okay, that is good to know. Jeff Rosenberg, please unmute and tell us your comment or question.
Yeah, I was just having a discussion with my son, and the issue that he raised was one of, okay, so even if there is good news, so to speak, what about voting rights? How do we protect people being able to vote? How do we, even if it isn't a legal question, just intimidation, different ways in which voting gets suppressed? And we, his notion being that, and we know the current administration will have no bones about using National Guard or whatever it takes to rig things that way. Is there anything we can be doing, should be doing about that, or we just have to go with thoughts and prayers over it?
You know, so the National Guard part, I don't really have any. I will say on the legal front that people may not have noticed, but our colleagues at Force Multiplier picked out 3 legal funds, C3s, that are doing really good. You know, you see all these cases. So we actually have on our website, if you want to donate to these C3 organizations, tax deductible. And people have been doing that. They go to the website. That's one thing I would suggest. It doesn't really answer your question exactly, but I will take the opportunity to put a plug for those legal organizations.
Yeah, I guess, one thing that Jim, I've heard you say in the past, and Lisa as well, is that there's certain things that are in our control and certain things that are not in our control, and things we can predict and we can't predict. Like we can't really know, what's going to happen in the future, but we know if we don't try to do anything, like that's not a solution either. So I think, we have to do what we can do for now, and then if a speed bump comes up in the future, then we deal with it, as it happens. And it does seem like a lot of these things that happen are a little performative, and then they don't have. They're things that have real consequences for sure, terrible things. But there have been a few things that seemed like, oh my gosh, like the sky is falling, and then it didn't quite fall as much as we thought it would. An election still happened, and Susan Crawford still won in Wisconsin, for example. After Elon Musk said he was going to invest like $1 million there or whatever. So, I think we have to keep plugging away.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that either, but I think the intimidation is out there. I think it's real. I think it is going to hurt us. And I think the best thing we can do is redouble our efforts. And just, if we're planning to canvass, grab people to go out there and canvass with us and just get as many people motivated as we possibly can.
That's a great idea. I love that, Joanne. Yeah. Okay, Mary, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Aaron. So with Jim, I just wanted to focus a little bit more on what I've come to learn to call the social media spaces. And like most of you here, I have traditionally gotten my political information and news in general from what is now called the legacy media. So that means we are so old that we are a legacy. Um, and so I just wondered, Jim, if you could expand a little bit on the opportunity that you see in Iowa. And I want to pay tribute to Sandra Barkin here, who is, I'm going to say an Iowa educator and one of our most stalwart members going way back to the beginning. And I know she loves it that we're focusing on influencers and content creators in Iowa. But could you give us a little bit more context about the problem and the solution as you see it?
Well, I mean, the problem is that they dominate news in a lot of different ways. Although, again, as I said, like for example, on YouTube, um, the blue media influencers, which are sort of national mostly, are doing quite well. and in the same ballpark. But when you're talking about a place like Iowa, then you have to start focusing about local issues or the way that national stuff impacts local news. So right now, soybean prices are horrible, right? Do people know this? And it's and so I mean, you would want to have an influencer who's talking about agriculture in Iowa to say, look, the reason because of this is because of the tariffs. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it. But the way these creators work, they do different kinds of things. They have they specialize in things. Some specialize in news, specialize in certain categories. They have style. They use. They have platforms, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or both or all of them. And they have a following, and they have a way that they communicate with those people. And the secret sauce here is so-called authenticity. And the fact that they have not just, in political advertising, it's very episodic, it's very one-sided. These folks, at least in theory and apparently in practice, they have a sense of how to talk to these people. They get feedback, right? They get chat, they get just like this, they get chat, they get comments. And so forth. So they're having a conversation with these people. And it's a different kind of conversation, totally different, not totally, but very, very different from political. We need to figure out how to adapt to that. And by the way, one of the ways also since you've asked me, in my view, to adapt to that is to have narratives or themes that you come back to over and over and over again, or they do. Like my favorite one is greedy billionaires. Well, we have tariffs because we have greedy billionaires. They want you to pay tariff tax so they don't have to pay tax. Anyway, that's again oversimplifying. I don't, but I think also that we have identified for this project a really good Iowa person who knows Iowa politics and knows Iowa media. And this is one of the best things about it that I think could lead this project. The other thing is we're working with an organization that does these kinds of pilot projects and has about a dozen of them doing different kinds of things. They know how to do that. And they also know how to do what's called amplifying. Do people know what amplifying is? Okay, so a big way about persuasion in all this is people are scrolling through their phones, right? They're scrolling things. And so the name of the game is to slice and dice things and get that into their things over and over again in their phone. So this organization is very good at amplifying. I've said a lot, but hopefully that partly answers your question.
All right, we've got a bunch of comments in the chat, and we also have two folks with hands up. So why don't we do, how about we do Lisa, you can say your thing, I'll read a thing from the chat. Meg, you can say your thing, and I'll read another thing from the chat. Lisa, go ahead.
Okay, well, just in answer to how to deal with your depression about the vacuum at the top of the Dems, there are some things happening that they're slowly getting into the mainstream news, but some people may not know about them. And one of them is that Dan Osborne, the independent candidate in Nebraska, has started a PAC called Working Class Heroes. And he is trying to draft working class candidates. He would be the only working class senator if he won. And there are things like that happening that are more long-term, like they're not going to fix things anytime soon. But I think it's easy just not to be aware of sort of what's happening behind the curtain or underground or whatever you want to call it. Like there are things happening because people are irritated with, lots of old people in the Senate and lots of old men and everybody is depressed about the leadership of the Democrats, but people are doing something about it. Not everybody is just sitting back and wringing their hands. Great
to know. One question from the chat. What are your predictions about how successful the gerrymandering efforts will be in other Republican states besides Texas? Jim, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty bad. I mean, I think I might that between Ohio, Missouri, and I guess Indiana, they might pick up like 4 or 5 additional seats. Now, in a wave, they may not really, we may actually, you can be too smart by half, right? You can try to slice it too thin. I think we're going to pick up a seat in Utah that's going to offset that. But, ballpark, I think they're going to pick up about 5 gerrymandered seats.
Wow.
And I think that Judy's put in the chat that Focus for Democracy has a fund to try to counteract that. And partly in California, but also to try to, there's all this work still with the legislatures haven't passed these things. And those, maybe Missouri has. So, I applaud Focus for Democracy for having a fund to try to sort of deal with that to the extent you can.
All right, we got our work cut out for us. Meg, you have a question.
Yes. How are the content influencers dealing with the chaos that Robert Kennedy is causing? I think this is going to create just a massive backlog at physicians' offices as they have to issue prescriptions for COVID vaccines. And I hope the content influencers are just making mincemeat out of this whole situation.
Well, we don't have it mobilized yet, Meg, so we can't, but I do think that one big theme is sort of anti-health, anti-science, that and anti, good things for people, that you're making a good point. It's the kind of thing that potentially could start to have an impact on people's lives.
I can just say from my perspective as someone who scrolls mindlessly through Instagram once or twice, that there are a lot of these influencers who are sort of like anti-Robert Kennedy, anti-Maha, who are like constantly posting these videos that have thousands and thousands of likes and views. So I think there are these people out there, and I think that message is starting to proliferate. This is a question from Chris in the chat. Jim, what do you know about the Democratic candidate in Maine to oppose Susan Collins? I just got back from Maine and heard diverse opinions about various Democratic candidates, including that Janet Mills is too old.
Well, there are 3 good candidates last I heard, including, I think Janet Mills hasn't actually announced, but maybe she's close to it. It's expected to be. She is kind of old, I think 69.
No, 77, I think.
Okay. That makes a difference. It does. I mean, when it comes to primaries like that, I just kind of let the dust settle. I got too much time. We don't want to weigh in on it. Let's wait and see what happens. Whoever the Democrat emerges, is fine. I actually don't think we'll really engage in Maine no matter what. I think that, we have colleagues with force multiplier and so forth that deal with Maine, and they'll be whoever the Democratic candidate is. Again, they'll get a lot of money to do what they need to do. There is also one of these ballot initiatives that I think needs to be voted down too, by the way, that I think force multiplier is working on.
Good to know. Another question. We have a comment in here. Mentioned earlier, Focus on Democracy has a fund related to California, but a question: is 31st Street still supporting Chorus with Brian Tyler Cohen?
No, because I think we helped get them kind of launched, and they're grateful for that. And the issue for us is that they're national, and we want to focus on states. So that's why we've made the shift. Now, the organization that sort of helped found them, the guy who came in and spoke with us, Stu Perlmutter, they're willing to collaborate with our state efforts with the creators that they have been supporting in the past that happen to be in state.
Okay, good to know. Eric had a comment in the chat. A friend is a member of the family that won the Supreme Court case Tinker versus Des Moines. Students' right to protest, wearing anti-war buttons. She might be interested in helping with Iowa. So good to know. Thank you. Another question in the chat. What about Courier that has state-based newsrooms?
Okay, so thanks again, Judy. We've been down that track. We were the issue with Courier, and we had two rounds of proposals from Courier, and just say it didn't work out. My belief is that Courier is a news organization, and they aspire to work with creators, and they're trying to work with creators, but they really don't. They're not there yet, and they want to work with them in a way that's not kind of the way that we want to work with them. So that's good question.
Okay. I love the conversation. It's so great to hear what's on people's minds and getting ideas and suggestions. Other folks. Okay, Judy, you got your hand up. You have a physical hand up.
Hand. I know that's old fashioned. I always keep right here by my desk something that says action is the best antidote to anxiety. That is by Mary Pence. And this is an opinion after, because I go to a lot of these things, if you hadn't noticed. And I think I have friends who say, well, I'm going to wait till the Dems get their house together. But I think we've said often, we are the democracy that we want to be. And there are plenty of local elections and other kinds of work that we can and should be doing, regardless of what we think of the national party. And it's complicated when you want to be analytical and not lie. I also feel the same for these creators. I've seen some of them. I think a force multiplier might have had Brian Tyler Cohen, and the creator they had was inane. A guy, he just shows pictures of himself and his girlfriend or himself at the gym. But this is, again, fighting fire with fire, and I don't think we can understand that. And I'm just going to leave it to the professionals and the young people. I don't want to be on these things. I think it's a little bit of a race to the bottom. I don't like to use it that way, but we got to find people where they are. Sorry, I will stop ranting.
How many of you are familiar with this? 6-7. If you don't know what that is, you are not talking to young people. Like anyone who has like a kid, like it is like it was actually in the New York Times. Like that's how big it is. I mean, it's like a cultural touchstone. It just shows you like.
What is it?
It's a thing that young people say. If you say it to anybody who is like between 12 and 18, they will all like know exactly what you were talking about. Or if you know any parents of children in that age range, they will know exactly what you were talking about. The teachers are like tearing their hair out trying to stop their kids from saying this over and over again. It's taken over social media like wildfire.
You mean it doesn't mean anything?
It doesn't mean anything. It's a meme. It doesn't mean there's no meaning. It's just like something cool to say. So we do not understand. There's like a whole language out there that they are talking that we don't understand. And it's like we're reading the New York Times, the Washington Post, and watching like PBS or whatever. And like, but we need to like fund the people who can speak that language and know about these things, because we are not qualified to understand.
According to my grandchildren that are 11 and 8, it means so, this or that.
Okay.
It's like nothing. It's like a thing. It's just like we might quote like a funny line from a movie like when we were younger. It's kind of like that. That's like the best thing I can define it. Roberta, you have your hand up.
Yeah.
Could I, before Roberta speak, I want to suggest an action since you're doing boycott Disney. Just yeah,
I would love to, but I don't consume any Disney products.
Well, okay, but maybe for someone who does. Sorry, Roberta.
You do.
Go ahead, Roberta.
Well,
Roberta.
That's fine. I just a lot of questions and thoughts about, like how do we get over our depression about leadership of the Democratic Party? How do we do this? And how do we do that? There are just so many
issues that we're all seeing these days. And I don't know if it was Lisa, you've said this, or Jim or Mary, but we know basically one of the things that keeps me going and is you can't fix everything, but you can fix some things. And I canvassed yesterday and I with Stacey Carroll's group, and as Lisa said, it just made me feel so good and so hopeful. And I will say, I really felt the energy that others have talked about yesterday in Stafford, Virginia. It's a very purple state, but a lot of Democrats said to me yesterday they hadn't really voted in the past. They didn't think it was that important, but now they really understand and what's going on in Washington and in the country has to stop. So I was really, really heartened by that. And I want to say for anyone who can join us to canvass, I know not everyone can, but I really, really encourage you to do that if you can. It'll make you feel good and it really makes a difference. So that's it. Thank you.
And if you can't, Jim just put a link in the chat to donate to Stacey Carroll. So that's another way you can get involved. Eric, you have your hand up.
Yes. I noticed in one of the recent mailings that 31st Street is now supporting postcarding, specifically mentioned postcards to voters. And I watched their long video in which they which the author states that that they have tested it, against statistical testing against control groups and so on. I wonder if you could comment on those. I have gotten some of their postcards, and they use they require that you use a very specific commentary in the postcard that you send, which is one that they say has worked according to their statistical analysis. So anyway, I'd like, maybe you can say why this was chosen.
Well, Eric, I think in general, we've not particularly been promoting postcards. Just because we have other things to do. My own view is that there's so much context and there's it's so difficult to evaluate. But my sense of a lot of studies on postcards, especially for larger, higher turnout elections, they've not proven to be very effective. My view is that they can be effective in these low turnout, down ballot elections. Probably what you saw was our Sunday night action newsletter, where, I mean, we have a more open philosophy for that so that we can promote some choice. So if people ask us Joanne maybe can comment, but when people ask us, would you promote this thing? And we tend to think, well, it's probably okay or probably can work. We've tended to put those in. It's not like a big endorsement from us, though.
Erica, that particular postcarding effort that we have listed is the Progressive Turnout Project. And it's got two different sets of postcards that they're sending out. One is news boosting and one is get out the vote. But for both of those, they are stating up front, please do not do this effort unless you're willing to stick to the script. So they give you a very specific script.
Right.
They know who it's going to. In one of those cases, each voter on the list is going to get 10 different postcards from them over a period of time. And they're doing it that way so that they can measure the results. So there's not as much variability as there is when people are just writing whatever messages they want. So that's one of the reasons we chose to participate in this particular effort, so that they can measure it, and then we hope to benefit from those results.
Right. Okay. I mean, I agree with Jim. There are other things that, we need to be involved in, but for people who are looking for things that they can do from home, and people I work with in the retirees and the union, sometimes this is the only thing I can get them to do, you know. So that's why I'm glad to hear what you had to say and why you chose them.
Great. Great question and great answer. All right. Anything else before we wind up? We have a hard close at 5:15, but anyone else have something they want to say or ask? Or I just want to say I'm grateful for all of you and grateful to be in community with, just kind of like holding our virtual hands as we go through this crazy time together. It's just good to know we're not alone.
One more thing, I ran into a colleague who has been volunteering with 31st Street. Yesterday, he canvassed in Arlington and said that he ran into a number of young people from George Washington University who were also canvassing in this large apartment block complex with apparently very good results. So I just wanted to pass that on.
That's great. All right. Lisa, anything you want to say before we?
I want to say good night, and I'm so glad you came, and we'll be in touch.